The more you put it out there, the more you're going to see signs in your world, in your life that add up to like, whoa, that could get me to that goal. What is going on, my friends? Welcome back to another episode of the Morning Takeaway Podcast, aka the Inside Influence Podcast, on the very first episode of 2024. Now, I'm actually recording this a little bit ahead of time to enjoy the holiday season as I'm traveling here and there, but I know that I'm putting this out in the first week of January. Now, you might be listening to this in 2026. I don't know. Hopefully it's of value when it comes to making goals for not only this year, but your life in general. Now, I know that this topic gets a little bit redundant, especially at the beginning of the year, but obviously it is that time of the year, and I feel strongly about sharing it and sharing my journey with setting goals and how to set goals. I want to tell you how I specifically set my goals, how I've kind of had some experiences in the past that have kind of realistically led me to where I'm at today in terms of just like the path I'm following in life. And I have to be transparent when I say that. I really was kind of the essence for the longest time of like, oh, here we go, just another person talking about setting goals and you should do this, that, and the other and check in on them. And I just never really bought into it. And I think that's probably a good percentage of people feel that way. And if you're already thinking that and feeling that as we start this podcast, I hope that you bear with me because I want to share some things towards the end of this podcast that I do specifically that I genuinely believe in that help to bring these goals to fruition in a little bit more of a tangible way. And I guess probably a different way of approaching your goals and things that you can do to apply that on a daily basis to help these things come to your fruition. I don't even know if that's the right word, but to achieve those goals. So first, I want to walk through kind of the standard way of how to create a goal. I want to talk about how I specifically do structure my goals when it comes to that how you would structure the goal, and then kind of my spin-off on it. And then I want to talk about exactly what I said and kind of how I apply this on a daily basis and how that helps me kind of check in on my goals on a daily basis as well. So with that said, happy freaking New Year. And if you wouldn't mind, one of my personal goals is growing this podcast as much as possible in 2024. And the way that you can help me out with that is by, number one, sharing the show if you find some value. Again, you don't have to share it just to share it, but if you do, that helps me more than you know. The shares help watching my videos as long as possible. That goes for my vlogs as well. Again, I don't expect you just to have the video on in the background, right? Like I should provide some kind of value to hopefully make you want to watch for all 15 minutes or however long I ramble on. And I'm a talker, so it's a lot. I'm also a walker. Ha ha ha. Get it? My last name. All right, that was stupid. But as well as liking each video and subscribing. There's a certain percentage of people that watch the show, and I can see this in the analytics on YouTube, that are retained viewers coming back each week, but are not subscribed. So don't forget to subscribe, and then as well, don't forget to hit the bell icon. So every time my videos come out, it sends you a notification, and then you can kind of spark the algorithm, for lack of a better way to put it. If you watch it as soon as it comes out, that helps me tremendously. So ultimately, the goal is to grow this podcast as much as possible, get people on it, the Inside Influence Podcast, and really take a deep dive into other people's lives, values, routines, and kind of go deep on life. And again, so that's something I'm focusing on for 2024, and I could actually go over that goal if I want to at the end. But for the sake of examples purposes, today we'll use an example of money. I think that's something that we can all relate to. Financial status or financial gain, or just using a number. I think it'll be easy to break down this whole goal setting process if we use money as the example. And One thing, by the way, that I love about money is the fact that financial practices can be the exact same thing as a fitness practice, right? It's that day in and day out deposit, or for lack of a better way to put it. If you put in the sweat equity over a compounding period of time, your body is going to yield results. Your mental capacity is going to yield results. So I like the crossover of financial and fitness goals. So I might go back and forth here and there with that example. So let's dive right into it 5 minutes later as I'm rambling on with how to structure a goal. Now, for the example's purposes, let's say that we want to make $100,000 this year. Now, that is relative. That's a relative number. That is strictly for example's purposes. But I want to give you the acronym that we've probably all heard before, the SMART acronym. Now, I think there are pieces to this that are very beneficial, very useful, and that I use with my goals. Now, there's also pieces of it that I don't quite agree with, and I think could be some changes to it. So I'll dive into that. First and foremost, if our goal is to make $100,000, or let's not even use $100,000, I want to make a lot more money. I want to make a lot of money. That would be some goal and at an elementary level that probably somebody that has no prior knowledge to setting goals would say. And there's nothing wrong with that because that knowledge might not be available to them. But when it comes to that specific statement, or not very specific, I should say, and that leads into the S of SMART, being specific. Well, I want to make a lot of money. Well, that doesn't give your brain, it doesn't give you any measurable, anything physical to say, hey, this is how I'm going to get there, right? Hey, you're just saying I want to have a lot of money. So, and again, relative example purposes. The S in specific stands for specific in this SMART acronym. Now, how can we be specific around I want to make a lot of money? Well, put a number on it. That gets into the M of the SMART acronym, being measurable. Can I measure the goal that I'm setting out to go for, right? I can measure $100,000. I can physically see the money coming in and out. Well, break down measurable a little bit more. I can physically see and calculate how much money do I need to make per month, per week, per hour, even. Like you can break that down to a level. Now, we could even do that. What is $100,000 divided by 52 weeks divided by 40 hours? So per hour, 52 weeks, you would be needing to make $48 an hour. Now, that is a key piece of information. We can now go out and say, hey, our time and our value on our life per hour is $48, right? Now, that's up for you to decide if it's more, if it's less, but if you have something, this helps in other areas of life, right? If something comes up and you say it's a $30 job, you can say, am I worth that? Or do I want to hike it up? Or somebody says, name your price. Well, I'm worth $48 an hour. Let's make it 100, right? There's different ways that you can apply that, and it's good to know, because if your goal is to get to that $100,000 at the end of the year, well, now we're breaking it down on the most minuscule level. So that pertains to specific and measurable, S and M in the SMART acronym. Now we get to the next letter, which is A, which stands for attainable or achievable. Now, this is the one for me in the R. R stands for realistic. A and R I don't really love. Now, the person that would teach this SMART acronym and preach the A and the R would say, don't try to conquer the world at one time. You have to be super realistic, this, that, and the other. Now, do not get me wrong. I think there is some validity to that, but in terms of, hey, if you made $10,000 last year and now you're saying you want to make $1 million, well, that might not be realistic. But in my opinion, if you made $100,000 last year and you want to make $1 million next year, I think that's pretty attainable and realistic. Now, call me crazy, but that is just what I believe in. I don't believe in setting limits on ourselves, because I believe in the idea that if we can actually believe in our goals and actually feel our goals, which I'll get into later, part of my practices, then I truly, truly believe that the world around us, the energy, the universe, our daily practices, our subconscious mind starts to look for ways to make these things happen, right? It's around us. It's an energy. Now, without getting too woo-woo on you, I think that the A and the R are a little, I told you what they mean. In my opinion, we can keep the R the same, keep it realistic. For the A, I personally would, and before I get into this, taking our goal of $100,000, I want to make $100,000 this year. Well, that is it? You ask yourself, is it achievable and is it realistic? That's what those A and those R's are doing. Well, for me, again, keep the R. The A to me is action. Can you take action? Can you break this goal down on a macro level? If you're doing it in a year, can I take action every day or every week or every month or every quarter, whatever it might be, to get me to that goal? So, is it an actionable goal? Is there things that I can break it down and create a game plan around to measure that, right? I can physically go in every quarter and I can measure where I'm at. I can adjust. I can take action on where I'm at and make changes along the way to get to where we want to be by the end of that goal. Now, covering the A and the R, that brings me to the T, which in my opinion is probably the most important as well as the M. T, and you can probably guess it, stands for time. Put a timeline on your goals. Now, there are short-term goals, anywhere from a week to a month. There are midterm goals, a month to 3 months, and there are long-term goals. Sometimes you could call that 3 to 6 months for a medium-term goal. Everybody's is kind of different relative to who they are and what they believe. And there's long-term goals, all the way up to a year plus, right? Well, with time, what this does is it puts a timeline on you. Well, now you're applying the pressure to yourself to get this goal done, right? Again, you are putting it out in the world to say, hey, I know that this is hanging over me, not in a negative way. It's just out there that I want to achieve this by December or January 1st, right? If we're going to make $100,000. So let's take this specific example of $100,000. I want to make $100,000 by January 1st of 2025. Again, we're now in 2024. I want to make $100,000 by January 1st of 2025. So we have now put a timeline on it. Again, you can break that timeline down, especially with this example. And again, think of fitness. If you want to lose 20 pounds, you can break that down. That's measurable. It's specific. It is achievable and realistic. It's also something you can take action on. And you can set a time limit. I want to lose 20 pounds in 3 months, right? So without being redundant here, in my opinion, the time and the measurability of that goal are the biggest pieces. Now, specific is also big, but that kind of alludes to the whole goal as a whole goal. That's kind of a mouthful and a rhyme. Wow, I'm just rhyming on every word. Anyways, specific because it has all of these components within the goal. So again, I want to make $100,000 by January 1st of 2025. Now, I think we've got the SMART goal down. Well, from that SMART goal, how do I continue every single day to use that? Like, okay, Nick, great. I bought into your idea and I wrote down my goals. I picked 5 goals. And if you're just starting, what I recommend is pick a goal for financial, pick a goal for personal, like that could be a fitness goal. You could have I would pick a goal for relationship goals and your interpersonal relationships. I would pick a goal maybe in your fitness that could be different than personal, and maybe for like retirement, or you can make buckets, or in business. There's so many different buckets, and then just create a goal around that. Now, with that, as I was saying, and I was about to be very sarcastic in saying, okay, Nick, I've written down my goals. Now what do I do? Well, here's where I want to enlighten you on my psychology of this whole process and what I've experimented with. And I'll give you a specific example that I truly believe works. And I think that's the first point before I tell you my actual practice. I think when you write these goals, when you think about these goals, you should take them from a frame of mind that you already have them. You should act on your goals. You should think about your goals. You should write your goals as if they're already coming true. Because what that does, it allows you to believe it wholeheartedly, and it allows you to feel it. If you can close your eyes and imagine that $100,000 in your bank account, feel the feelings that come over you. Do that right now. Close your eyes, imagine the $100,000 in that bank account, see the numbers, and feel the feelings that would come along. I would feel abundant. I feel secure. I feel like I can open more levels of my life, right? Whatever that is for you, you have to come to grasp and grips with those feelings, because now you can start to actually feel what it'll feel like once that comes. Again, if you look at the back of your hand, this is right out of the book called The Secret. Look at the wrinkles on your hand. Look at your fingertips. Look at everything on the back of your head, the veins, the hair, whatever it is, and imagine gripping the steering wheel of your dream car. You can feel that. You can think about it. You can see it, right? If that's a Lamborghini for you, see the Lamborghini on the steering wheel or whatever it is, right? You can feel that within you. And we didn't even have to get into a Lamborghini. It's the same thing for other goals in your life. Now, call that what you want it, call it woo-woo. These are things that I've seen to work for me. I specifically remember, and to add on that, by the way, for something, how I want you to structure your goals, always say I will, or I believe that I will, because now you're reinforcing positive self-talk, and you're able to come to grips with, hey, I can do this. You're telling your brain you are capable and you are worthy, and you will do that, right? Now, for me personally, as I started to buy into this, it was really at the beginning of 2022, 2023, I guess it was this year, 2023, or last year now, that I started to toy with this. I would say my goals 10 times out loud. At that point, there was about 9 of them after I would meditate. I would say them out loud to myself. And one of my goals it was something that I wanted that was measurable by July 1st of 2023. I kid you not, 22 days into January of doing this every single day, that goal had already come true. Now, call it coincidence, call it what you want. This has been a recurring thing for me. One of my long-term, quote-unquote, goals for the year was something to happen by December 1st of 2023. I kid you not, on November 27th, that goal, I was writing it out and I was like, oh my gosh, how is this going to come true? Like, I can feel it, I believe it. We've got 3 days until the month ends, until I want to get to that timeline. The next day I had an email basically confirming my goal. And it really is, there's power in it. I believe in it. And I encourage you to be open to that perspective of at least trying these things. Now, the next step that I would like to put out there and offer up as advice, and something that I do, is as a part of my nighttime routine, I actually, for the same reason that I'll tell you in a second, I plan out my next day. I've alluded to this before. I've shown you on vlogs. I go into my daily calendar. I always write everything out. I do not like electronic calendars. I write a little square, then I write what I need to do, all the way from start to finish of my day. Now, when the day's going on, I go through, when I get something done, I color in the box and I strike it through. There's dopamine in that. You're proving to yourself that you can do something, and you're kind of reinforcing this momentum shift of productivity. Now, after I do that at night, I do all my journaling, everything. I put my phone down, and the last thing that I do has to do with my goals. And this is what I want to offer to you to potentially try. Now, I have a composition notebook, and I go through at this moment in time, I have 15 goals. At night, the last thing I do before I go to bed, I write out every single one of my 15 goals, and I say, let's use our example. I believe that I will make $100,000 by January 1st of 2025. For example's sake, the $100,000, I am putting it down on paper. Now, this is the same idea as journaling. If you haven't experimented with journaling, I did a podcast on my morning routine. I kind of talked about it in depth. Go find that podcast, listen to it. But the art of writing your thoughts out in times of stress, another thing I do, I just go out and I write everything that's in my head. Well, now what you're doing is getting everything out of your brain to see it physically, right? You now see it on the paper in front of you, and your brain says, oh, wow, it's a lot less than I thought it was in my head. And you begin to gain this clarity, and that's super powerful. So with that said, if you now write your goals specifically out, well, now you're putting it out into the world. You're putting it out for your brain to see it on paper. You can literally feel what it feels like to write out $100,000. And the biggest thing for me and what I believe in is that it's putting an energy out in the world to let your subconscious know, hey, I need to look for ways to get me to that goal. And before you know it, the more and more you think about it, the more and write about it, wow, I'm just all over the place. I'm so passionate about this. The more you put it out there, the more you're going to see signs in your world, in your life that add up to like, whoa, that could get me to that goal. I promise you things will start happening. I guess I can't make that promise wholeheartedly, but because it's up to you to feel and do and decide and really believe in. But with that said, I think there's so much power in that. So I say that to hopefully inspire something within you to try this out. And circling back to that idea of like, hey, you will start to recognize things around. There's something in our brains called the reticular activating system, the RAS. If you've ever like, I remember my first time I saw a red Ferrari, and the first time I saw it, I was like, wow, that's really sick. Like, I've never seen a red Ferrari before. Then the next week you see 7 of them, right? Like, I'm sure you've all had a similar experience. Well, that's because your RAS is now activated. You are focused and you are thinking about finding a red Ferrari. It just starts to show up because your brain and your subconscious is now actively looking for those red Ferraris. And those red Ferraris were always there. You just weren't actively turned on in your brain to always be looking for it, right? It works the same way with our goals. Now, I know I've done a lot of talking. I kind of feel like I'm talking really fast. I need some freaking water. But this is just really how passionate I feel about it. Because if I can do it and I can achieve some of the goals that I have, like there is nothing in life that fires me up more than putting this kind of information out and hopefully inspiring you to achieve those goals as well, and seeing you succeed, and maybe looking back in 10 years and saying, wow, I remember that podcast that Nick put out, and that ultimately changed the course of my life, right? Like, I can't speak to that happening, but right, like if that shifts something inside you, then I am more fulfilled than I could ever imagine being in life. And I'm so serious when I say that, because I want to see you succeed. I think our world is a world of creation, not competition. You have the ability to create whatever you want to. And again, as it's the last thing I do every single night, I write it out. I don't look at my phone, and then I get in bed. And as you go to sleep, and it's the same idea as writing out what you have to do the next day, your brain is actively dreaming on it. It is the last thing you put in there, so it's the last thing that it's going to kind of reflect on and continue to look for in your sleep and when you wake up, right? It's your brain is a powerful organ. It has the ability to do some pretty crazy things, and whether you know it or not, it will be working for you based on what you put into it last before you go to sleep. So that is what I have for you on this long-winded podcast of 2024, the long-winded first podcast of 2024. Now, I say that, but my goal for this podcast, again, is to get guests on it weekly, and I'm going to grind away at that goal to and where I was going with that is the fact that those episodes will probably be an hour long. So, and I think that's easy to listen to. It's easier to listen to because it's two dialogues going back and forth. It's a little easier to bump around than to just listen to me ramble on and on and on to myself and to the camera, right? But again, if someone could get on a camera by themselves and a microphone and change my life, I would hope that I could have some kind of impact on at least one of you. So, wow, that was a lot. That felt good to get out, though. It feels really good. I'm going to end this thing with a random question generator. Generate a random question. Come on. What's your plan for surviving a zombie invasion? Wow. I don't know that I have a good answer for this. If I had to survive a zombie invasion, I'd probably want to go out somewhere in the woods on top of a hill, hunker down, and be able to have like as much food at the top of the hill, and I might need some weapons. I don't know. Like that's a freaky thought, but let's generate one more. Why not? It's 2024. That has nothing to do with generating another random question, but here we go. What is it that motivates yourself the most? Wow. First thing that comes to my mind is I am self-motivated to put my best self out there so that I can hopefully inspire someone else to become the best version of themselves, and then keep that knowledge and that version of self passing down or passing to one more person. And if you can keep doing that one person at a time, I think the compounding effect of that is immeasurable. We can literally change the world and have an impact before we leave, and kind of leave that legacy of, just living your most genuine life and fulfilling your maximum potential. I like that question a lot more than the zombie apocalypse. So anyways, that is all I have for you. I appreciate you listening. I want to wish you a happy new year. If it's not 2024 right now, if it's not January, whenever you're listening to this podcast, I hope you're doing awesome. Hope you're doing well. Hope you also kind of take the idea of New Year's goals, and it doesn't have to be in January that you do this. Like, to me, why not start tomorrow? You can start this at any day of the year and be able to apply these things to ultimately help your goals come true and achieve those goals. So why wait? That's another message for you and takeaway. But that is all I have. I appreciate you. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you're the first one to see my videos on the tube of the you with me. I will see you next time here in 2024. Have an awesome freaking day, and don't forget to smile.